Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you here today. I'm really honored to be here and grateful for the generosity and kindness of the organizing committee for inviting me. When confronting the ever-present threat to our human survival with nuclear weapons, there are some similarities that we face in Japan and in Europe. In Europe, we also have a continued reliance on the concept of extended nuclear deterrence. That same situation in place here in Japan. Unfortunately, in Europe, it's very concrete in consensus-based security doctrines, and it's going to require action on the part of a lot of people to change that. I'm going to briefly talk about what we're up against. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, includes 28 countries, 3 of them who have their own nuclear weapons. And they agreed in their last strategic concept that NATO would remain a nuclear alliance as long as nuclear weapons exist. This makes our work very difficult. And we are told that the only way to change anything is to get all of these 28 countries to agree to change. However, we've learned from other weapons that is not true. There are 5 European countries that host U.S. nuclear weapons: Belgium, Germany, Italy, Turkey, and where I live, in the Netherlands. These are B-61 gravity bombs, and they're designed to be dropped from airplanes, just like the bombs used on Hiroshima and here in Nagasaki. 4 of these countries, all of them except for Turkey, have pilots that train every year to use nuclear weapons. All of these countries have said in one form or another that they want the United States to take their bombs home. But they have not yet been able to have them removed, and that's because they're held hostage to this idea of consensus. Instead, the United States plans to spend $12 billion on modernizing this B-61 bomb, making it more usable, increasing the chance that it will be used again by intent or by accident, and making it less likely that we will be able to remove them. This is a problem. The Dutch Parliament, in an overwhelming majority in 2010, demanded that the Dutch government tell the United States our country no longer relies on their weapons for our security. And according to diplomatic reports, this was actually done. The ambassador in Washington told the State Department that we don't want the weapons anymore. The response was, unfortunately, that they will remain until NATO, all 28 countries, agrees to remove them. And this offended a lot of our parliamentarians, because they believe, as do I, that we should have a sovereign right to decide our security future, a democratic right to decide whether or not we want to stay under the so-called nuclear umbrella. Now, NATO is not making progress as a whole, but in some of the individual countries, we are seeing changes. And this is because we're starting to look at these weapons no longer as a symbol of status or power, but instead as an actual bomb. And we're talking about the indiscriminate, inhumane consequences of any use. We're talking about nuclear weapons as weapons again. And this has been the message that we've taken lessons from here in Nagasaki, a lesson that was born here 68 years ago. So when we share the tragic stories of what these weapons do to people, we change the way people think, and we change people's lives. We're also working very closely with Red Cross and Red Crescent societies on a political level in these different countries to demand action to outlaw and eliminate nuclear weapons. And for the first time ever last week, the Dutch Red Cross, first time ever, went on the record calling for the removal of U.S. nuclear weapons from the Netherlands. We're excited about that. and excited about the other new actors that are coming on board in our shared effort. And I want to spend my last couple of minutes talking about something we don't often look at in these disarmament discussions, namely banks and financial institutions. On the 10th of October of this year, my organization launched a report on the financing of nuclear weapons producers. And this report does a number of things. It looks at how private money from banks and pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, asset managers, are paying for the maintenance and the modernization of nuclear weapons. It looked at 27 companies that are involved in the nuclear arsenals of France, India, the UK, and the US, and we focused on private contractors. And that did limit the scope of our research a bit. Not every nuclear-armed country uses the private industry to build and maintain its arsenals. And then we looked at where the money comes from. We looked at what financial institutions provided loans or investment banking or owned shares or bonds of these companies. And we found 298 financial institutions from 30 countries are involved, including financial institutions here in Japan. Here there are five financial institutions that invest over $7 billion US in nuclear weapons producing companies. These are Chiba Bank, Mitsubishi UFJ Financial, Mizuho Bank, Oryx Corporation, and Sumitomo Mitsui Banking. They are investing in companies that are developing the key components to maintain and modernize nuclear weapons. And this can be depressing to find out that financial institutions, maybe your bank, is investing in the bomb. But it's also an opportunity. First of all, financial institutions tend to be very responsive to public pressure. They don't want to look bad. And they know that if you, their clients, say that they're investing in nuclear weapons, they will look bad. Second, many financial institutions have policies that prevent them from investing in any controversial weapon or illegal weapon. Now, nuclear weapons are not yet illegal, but a lot of financial institutions know a ban is coming, and they are preparing for one by putting good policies into place. The Don't Bank on the Bomb report found that 12 financial institutions have extremely comprehensive policies. We found another 20 institutions with a good policy, but still has a little bit of loopholes. Our list is not comprehensive, and we're constantly searching for more financial institutions who have banned investment in nuclear weapons. And you can help to create these. The first step is dialogue. Talk to your bank, ask if they have a policy, let them know if they are investing, that you know they're investing, and you want them to develop a policy. We have some policies on our don'tbankonthebomb.com website, and we found in our campaign that the first step is the most important. First you talk to the bank, then you go public, then you encourage people to take their money out of the bank if they don't enact a policy. What we found, and it was very positive in Sweden, when we launched this report last year, a spontaneous campaign developed. And people posted questions on Swedbank, a big national bank's Facebook page. Why are you investing in nuclear bombs? In less than a year, Swedbank developed a policy that prohibits investment in nuclear weapons. So this brings new allies into our disarmament campaigns, and it's a positive step that we can take. So there are four things I hope you leave here thinking about. Remembering that nuclear weapons are actual, outdated, clumsy weapons, not symbols of power or prestige. Remembering the consequences of their use and telling the stories about those consequences. Working with the Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, locally and nationally. My dream is that every Red Cross society have a poster where you give blood, telling about nuclear weapons, and engaging new excited different actors in our quest to outlaw and eliminate nuclear weapons, including the financial sector. I made a small fact sheet that shows who in Japan invests in nuclear weapons. I'll have these for you. And everybody has a role to play in bringing us towards a world free of nuclear weapons. There are going to be challenges, but we're going to get there. And I look forward to working with you all to do it. Thank you.
Governor Nakamura, Mayor Kawe, Dr. Tomonaga, and Dr. Tsuchiyama, people of Nagasaki, conference participants, I bring greetings from the 60,000 members of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation and wish to express to you and to the city of Nagasaki our deep appreciation for carrying on this tradition of Nagasaki Global Citizens Assemblies to eliminate nuclear weapons. It's really a great pleasure for me to be back in Nagasaki and particularly to renew old friendships. The steadfast commitment of the people of Nagasaki and Hiroshima to nuclear weapons abolition for nearly 7 decades is both admirable and honorable, along with many millions of other thinking and caring people throughout the world. I share with you the hope and the goal that Nagasaki will forever remain the last city to suffer nuclear devastation. It is evident that there is only one way to assure this goal, and that is to abolish nuclear weapons. To do so will require leadership and massive demand from people throughout the world. As one who has worked toward this goal for over 4 decades, I know that it is an extremely difficult challenge, but I also think on occasion that we are making progress. In 1986, there were over 70,000 nuclear weapons in the world. Today, there are just over 17,000 nuclear weapons. It is progress that the world has shed some 53,000 nuclear weapons in roughly the past quarter century. But we still, of course, have far too many. To assure that there are no more Hiroshimas or Nagasaki's will require a world with 0 nuclear weapons. In the nuclear age, humankind must not be passive in the face of the threat posed by nuclear weapons. The future of humanity and all life depend upon the outcome of the ongoing struggle between hubris and wisdom. And that's what I'd like to talk about for a moment. Hubris is an ancient Greek word meaning extreme arrogance. Wisdom is cautionary good sense. Hubris is at the heart of Greek tragedy, the arrogant belief that one's power is unassailable. Wisdom counsels that no human power is impregnable. Hubris says that some countries can hold on to nuclear weapons and rely upon them for deterrence. Wisdom says these weapons must be eliminated before they eliminate us. Hubris says these terrible weapons are subject to human control. Wisdom says that humans are fallible creatures subject to error. Hubris repeats that we can control our most dangerous technologies. Wisdom says, look at what happened at Chernobyl and at Fukushima. Hubris says the spread of nuclear weapons can be contained. Wisdom says that the only sure way to prevent the spread and use of nuclear weapons is to abolish those that exist. Hubris says that political leaders will always be rational and avoid the use of nuclear weapons. Wisdom observes that all humans, including political leaders, behave irrationally, sometimes under some circumstances, and some leaders far more than others. Hubris says that we can play Russian roulette with the human future. Wisdom says we have a responsibility to assure that there is a human future. Hubris says that we can control nuclear fire. Wisdom says nuclear weapons will spark wildfires of human suffering and must be eradicated forever from the planet. In the nuclear age, wisdom is the best antidote to hubris. I want to go back in time to the horrific opening of the nuclear age and explore the wisdom of three men who understood clearly that the creation and use of atomic weapons changed the world. These men were Albert Camus, Mohandas Gandhi, and Albert Einstein. Their response to the use of atomic weapons were very different from that of the then President of the United States, Harry Truman, who, when he heard of the bombing of Hiroshima, was reported to have said, "This is the greatest thing in history." He also thanked God that the bomb had come to the United States and not to its enemies. Albert Camus was a great French novelist and existentialist who, during World War II, edited the underground French resistance newspaper, Combat. 12 years after the war, in 1957, he would receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. After learning of the bombing of Hiroshima, even before the second bomb had been dropped on Nagasaki, Camus wrote, and I quote, our technical civilization has just reached its greatest level of savagery. We will have to choose in the more or less near future between collective suicide and the intelligent use of our scientific conquests. Before the terrifying prospects now available to humanity, we see even more clearly that peace is the only battle worth waging. This is no longer a prayer, but a demand to be made by all peoples to their governments, a demand to choose definitively between hell and reason. Camus recognized instantly that after the atomic bomb was created and used, peace needed to be elevated to the top of our hierarchy of values and goals. It needed to be pursued actively, that is, waged, with the same strategic thinking, discipline, commitment, and courage as is used in waging war. For Camus, the new circumstances of nuclear weapons in the world required people to wage peace and to lead their leaders. Gandhi was the great proponent of satyagraha, truth force, and nonviolence. He was leading India to independence from the British when the atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Gandhi recalled his reaction to the bomb, and I quote, I did not move a muscle when I first heard that the atomic bomb had wiped out Hiroshima. On the contrary, I said to myself, unless the world adopts nonviolence, it will spell certain suicide for humanity. Nonviolence is the only thing the atom bomb cannot destroy. For Gandhi, the violence of the atomic bomb could only be overcome by the nonviolence of humanity. Albert Einstein, the great scientist and humanitarian, wrote, the unleashed power of the atom has changed everything save our modes of thinking. and thus we drift toward unparalleled catastrophe. Einstein saw that the old ways of thinking were a trap, and people must learn to think in new ways. I believe the most important new ways of thinking that are needed are species identification and solidarity. That is, we must think like members of one race, the human race. In doing so, we will learn to settle our differences peacefully and not through violence, and we will build institutions that support these ways of thinking. For Einstein, the critical factor brought about by atomic weaponry was the need for new modes of thinking if humankind is to avert unparalleled catastrophe. Three great men, three powerful expressions of wisdom. The only number of nuclear weapons that makes sense is 0, and that must be our goal, a world with 0 nuclear weapons. The world is only as, this world, the world of 0, is only as far away as our imaginations and determination and our perseverance. To achieve nuclear 0, we must wage peace, take nonviolent actions, and change our modes of thinking to identify as members of the human species. The nuclear age demands of us that we conquer hubris with wisdom. We must never give up on seeking the goal of a world free of nuclear weapons. We can follow wisdom and live together as humans, seeking solutions to our common problems, or we can follow the path of hubris and perish together, stuck in our apathy, our ignorance, and our national allegiances. The most important next step on the journey to a peaceful and non-killing world is ending the nuclear weapons era. This can be accomplished by the negotiation of a nuclear weapons convention to the phased, verifiable, irreversible, and transparent elimination of nuclear weapons. Progress is being made toward this goal, but it does seem unbearably slow. Civil society and nuclear weapons states civil society and non-nuclear weapons states must bring more pressure to bear upon the existing nuclear weapons states to negotiate the elimination of their nuclear arsenal. I would also encourage the countries participating in the upcoming Mexico conference to begin negotiations with or without the nuclear weapons states for a legal ban on the manufacture, possession, use, or threat of use of nuclear weapons. The process must begin and it must be approached with a sense of urgency. Having identified the problem that nuclear weapons endanger the human species and much of complex life, we should move rapidly toward eliminating the nuclear threat. In doing so, we will free up scientific and financial resources to deal with other pressing global threats, including climate change, development of renewable energy resources, pollution of the oceans and atmosphere, scarcity of potable water, food insecurity, and loss of forest biodiversity and arable land. For the future of humanity, we must also move forward to eliminate war as a human institution. I will end with a short poem I wrote earlier this year. It is entitled A Few Simple Truths. Life is the universe's most precious creation. There is only one place we know of where life exists. Children, all children, deserve a full and fair chance. The bomb threatens all life. War is legitimized murder with collateral damage. Construction requires more than a hammer. The rising of the oceans cannot be contained by money. Love is the only currency that truly matters. One human being, one true human being, brings beauty to the earth. Thank you very much.